Welcome back to Raised by Giants Illuminated Insights discussion. We are live. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys and any moderators out there or any members. We have a very amazing discussion for you guys here today with author, filmmaker, and writer and producer and star of the hit documentary JFKX, Solving the Crime of the Century on Amazon Prime now. Link in the description. Jay Weidner, welcome back to the show.
Hey,
how's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing great, and man, are they doing everything they can to combat our film.
I've never seen anything like it. I thought when I did the moon landing one, that the reaction that I got from that one was, I thought, really strong. But I've never seen them take action like this. I mean, they're bringing out the big guns. We not only have a documentary series coming out on Nat Geo. That from the trailer clearly is refuting our film in every way. But they just announced last week that the top screenwriter in Hollywood, David Mamet, is authoring a film about the JFK assassination. It's going to star Al Pacino, and it's going to be directed by Barry Levinson, who directed Wag the Dog, which was a movie about a film director played by Dustin Hoffman named Stanley, who is working for the CIA faking stuff, and he eventually dies at the end of the film. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm flabbergasted. I mean, this is probably going to be $100 million film, and Al Pacino himself probably charges 40 or 50 million. So David Mamet, oh my God, he must get like, 25 million for a screenplay. So this is a huge film, and I can only say that we hit a nerve. That's all I can say. We hit a nerve, and they're scrambling, and they're probably not too happy with us, especially me, for making them work. They don't like to work. They like to just collect their money and to stay around and do nothing. But then suddenly they have to get up and do something. They may not be too happy about it. So, it's amazing. It's just amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I never had a $100 million film and made in response to one of my revelations. So,
yeah, first it was Paul Landis came out and said that he planted the magic bullet, and then the National Geographic coming out with a documentary series, I think on the 7th of next month is when that starts, with all the witnesses that are still alive from the assassination. And now there's an AI movie starring Al Pacino coming out about the assassination.
Yep. No movies made, no documentaries made by mainstream media, except for the movie JFK by Oliver Stone in the 60 years since the Kennedy assassination. They didn't do anything on the 50th anniversary. There were no specials. There were no documentaries on the 50th, which you would think would be kind of the more important date, not the 60th. But suddenly everybody's interested in it, and it's all coming after our film got released, not before, after. And it's a response. I know how they work. And, what can I say? The kind of hard to argue our film is. And I can tell by the comments and by the emails I'm getting that nobody wants to discuss evidence. Everybody just has, not everybody. I mean, the people who have a negative view of the film never want to discuss what the film says as fact. They just want to call me and you names, and that's telling.
Yeah, with the 60th anniversary next month, it really seems like they're just pumping out and pushing the propaganda around the JFK assassination hardcore. That's what it really feels
and
like.
I might have a chance to talk to Bobby here in the next couple of weeks, so we'll see how that goes. Bobby Kennedy, that is.
Oh, really? That'll be amazing. I wonder if he's seen it. I bet he's had to have seen it, right?
Oh, come on. He's seen it. The entire Kennedy clan has seen it. Probably a number of times.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But it's on Prime, and it's still a really good film. To me, I'm not saying it because I'm bragging, but I think it's the best documentary on the JFK assassination. And I don't mean that because I wrote it. I mean the way that you edited it, in the way that it was directed. It's the best. I mean, in technical fashion, actually more than content fashion. So that's, as a filmmaker, I think it's one of the best made docs on the JFK assassination.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely, a lot of work went into making that film, and if you really want to know what happened to JFK, watch our hit documentary JFK Solving the Crime of the Century. If you haven't already, I'll drop the link in the chat really quick.
Yeah.
But it's also in the description of the video as well. Now, for the topic at hand, Jay, I've been trying to tell people for a long time now that extraterrestrials don't exist. In fact, it's basically impossible for any being to come here from another planet in the universe and walk around here like us, no matter how technologically advanced they are. Technology can't save you from our atmosphere, our gravity, and our sun, right? It just wouldn't work. But if some other creature or being does exist that's similar to us, Jay, they aren't from outside the planet. They're from here, and they've been here for a really long time. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, the book that I'll be discussing is called The Naked Bible, and it's written by, I want to make sure I get this right, Giorgio Cataneo, and the real author is Mauro Biglino. Biglino. I hope I'm not butchering that, but Mauro is a linguist and knows all the languages, the Aramaic and Hebrew, all the languages that the Bible was written in. In fact, that's what he sought out to do when he was young. He's now 70, but when he was young, he wanted to understand what the Bible was actually saying. And by the way, there's not just one Bible. There are literally thousands of Bibles. I'm not talking, when I say Bible, I mean the Old Testament. We can talk about the New Testament, but for the most part, I'm talking about the Torah or the Old Testament, the Jewish Torah. And there's so many Bibles that they started a Bible project funded by wealthy people to put together all the Bibles, all the Torahs that there are into one book. And they started it like 20 years ago, and they're estimating that it'll be done in about 200 years, this project. That's how many Bibles there are out there. Okay. So we have to understand that there's not one, like we're taught, especially in religious courses and things, that there's just this one book and it's been here for all this time, and it's just not true. Secondly, what Biglino does is he shows you how the words got mistranslated. So the word for all through the Bible, so the word for God is not God. It's Elohim, and it's plural. It means a number of beings. And the Elohim created us. It says explicitly they created us in their image. And and the Elohim, we don't know who they are. We don't know. There's a description for what they look like, and they look like, well, frankly, they look like you, Ryder. They're tall. They have reddish hair, blondish hair, and they have white skin. That's about the best description that we have. The angels and the archangels are the warrior class of the Elohim. And he points out all through the book, if you actually look at what the archangels are doing, they're either having sex with women or they're killing people. Pretty much that's about all. And they're super attracted to women with long hair, by the way, earthly women that they created, of course. So he points out that, so if you read the sentence, which is all through the Bible, God came in his glory, right? Well, that's not what that says. The glory is a Hebrew word that doesn't mean glory. It means flying machine. So it's saying Elohim came in his flying, or even better, singular, Yahweh came in his flying machine. So what happened is, what he thinks happened is that when the church translated it into Latin, Saint Jerome in 400 CE, he couldn't understand what he was reading. He didn't understand what flying machine. What's a flying machine, right? I don't know. I don't even understand what that means. And so he spiritualized the text. He turned everything into this like glory instead of what it really was. And Roush became the Holy Spirit when Roush is actually a weapon. But he couldn't understand how you could kill somebody from afar. So he thought it must be a spirit of some kind. I don't know what he's thinking. I'm just telling you that he changed everything. And the rabbis know all of this, by the way. They've gone. So this is our book. You guys want to misinterpret our book? Well, go ahead, misinterpret our book. But that we're not going to misinterpret it. And they pretty much agree with Morrow that that's what is being said in this book. And so the Elohim created, what the Elohim did, I believe, is they came to many lands. They were looking for a chosen people. That would be a people that would do what they say, what they're told. And they interacted with people in Greece and in India, in Central America, in South America, in Africa. We have all these mythologies of this interaction going on between the gods and humans, right? And sex and wars and all of it. And they finally decided that they were going to choose the Israelites, that the Israelites were the ones that would do their bidding the best. And so the Israelites became the chosen people. They're chosen by the Elohim to do their bidding. And so what is the Elohim's bidding? Well, I mean, if you read the text, it's conquer lands and kill the men. And if the women are young, enslave them. And that's the story. And he doesn't use evidence. He just reads you from the Bible. That's all Morrow does. He does not bring in any extraneous sources or anything like that. He just reads you from the Bible. And these dudes are, like there's all these strange rituals in the Bible that nobody understands. Like if you go see Yahweh or the Elohim, first you have to be stripped of your garments, and then you have to be bathed and cleaned. Then you have to have all these oils anointed on you, right? And you're like, what's going on here? Well, that's because we're filthy scumbags, and if we're going to be in the front of the Yahweh and his scions in the Elohim, then we've got to be all cleaned up, and we have to have oils on us so we don't they don't catch any diseases from us or anything, because we're just scum workers. And the Elohim choose certain people that that they make into leaders, and you can tell who they choose because these people don't die in the Bible. So Moses doesn't die in the Bible, and Jesus doesn't die in the Bible, or he dies, but he's resurrected. And others are also. And these are probably, they're probably taken in to the Elohim. Noah, for instance, when Noah was born, his dad was really worried because his dad and his mom both had dark hair and olive skin, but Noah had white skin and red hair. And he said, this must be the work of an angel. In other words, an angel came and raped his mom. And all through the book, the Bible, the Elohim are constantly having sex with earth women. They were super attracted to them. It says that we saw women and they were fair and we took them. And And so what we're really looking at here, and I don't want to offend anybody. I don't know if you're a person of faith, I totally understand why you have faith. It gives you great comfort. I unfortunately I can't do that, but I understand why you do and why it hasn't. I'm not trying to break up your religious beliefs. I'm just telling you what the Bible actually says, according to a guy who knows what he's talking about. And you have to conclude that there's the world's been ruled by a secret group of beings, the Elohim. From the beginning, they made us, and we're their slaves, and they may be trimming the herd even as we speak. And it's an incredible revelation. I really highly recommend the book. It's only $7 if you get it on Kindle. Well worth. It's like a latte and a half, right? So get the book and read it. It's really well written. It brings together so many different disparate lines of thought, and you finally get to understand what really, not only what you're reading in the Bible, because I've never been able to, honestly, I can read just about any text in the world, but I have the hardest time in the world reading the Bible. It's like I don't know what I'm reading. I don't care about it, and but now I understand what's actually being said, and what's being said is basically that we're the slaves of a race of being that not only influences us, but manipulates us. Let's not. As he points out that this archangel class, right? So Michael is the archangel. Michael, he's the lead warrior, the lead conqueror for them. Then the Gabriels. So they're like classes, right? There's the Michael class. There's the Gabriel class. The Gabriel class is sort of like guards, and also the Gabriel class is the one that goes out and tells human beings what to think. And the Gabriel class is the one that that's who told Jesus's mom, that was Gabriel, right? That entered into her room, right? When Muhammad was a shepherd and he was trying to get out of the rain, he went into a cave, and he says he met Gabriel there, and Gabriel gave him the whole Quran right there in one sitting, dictated the entire Quran to him. And he thought, and he said this when he got back to home to his wife, he said, I think I talked to a demon tonight. Right. And so his first response to his conversation with Gabriel was that it was a demon. But his wife said, okay, well, tell me what it said. And so he started spouting out the Quran. She's like writing it down because she could read and write, and he couldn't. And she's writing it down furiously. And she says, no, this isn't the work of a demon. Right. This is the work of the Elohim. So
wasn't it Gabriel too that went to Jesus's mother as well?
Yeah,
I think that was Gabriel that appeared to Mother Mary.
Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yep, it was Gabriel. Jesus's father is technically Gabriel. I mean, according to the Bible. And so what we have here is a series of war stories, you might say, more than anything else. And it's and it's not really the Jews. It's just one particular section. It's the house of Jacob, the tribe of Jacob is really who was the ones that agreed, to be the chosen people. And so it wasn't like all of Israel. It was just one particular family or group. And I was talking to Cliff High about all this, and he told me that the remote viewers that he's working with say that, I hope I don't get in trouble, Cliff. I didn't get your permission to say this, but he said that that they now live up on the moon, that they live inside the moon. And I know that there's something going on in the moon because I've looked at pictures of craft going around and things. And that would make sense to me in a certain way, that you'd be able to watch everything going on, but you'd be separated from us and probably living because they live a long time. Those ages that are in the Bible, those are true. Methuselah actually lived, 900 years, and Noah lived 800 years. They're long lived, and the Elohim probably live 2 or 3,000 years, maybe. And so Yahweh could still be here with us. It's very likely that he is. And so, I'm not trying to crush anybody's religious beliefs. You're entitled to them and everything. I'm a guy who wants to go after the truth, and I've always wanted to find out, the mistakes and the mistranslations and everything behind the Bible, so that I could then understand the Bible. And that's what this book does. It shows me exactly where they screwed up and how they got mistranslated, and also the rabbis, they agree with him. They don't argue with him. So it's really the Christians who have misinterpreted the Old Testament.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the moon. I think that is a weird possibility. It almost sounds like some secret space program nonsense going on the moon. But I think that it's a high possibility that there's just extra land on the Earth that we don't know about, and that's where they've been this entire time. And the high,
someplace nice. They don't like cold weather. That's pretty obvious if you look at the places where they went: India, Central America, Middle East. Right? They don't really like cold weather. So you don't really see any interactions with these beings, like, say, far South America or way up north, right? Russia, for instance, doesn't have any of these stories, right, of interaction. So they don't like the cold. So I would say they're probably in the South Pacific, somewhere where no boats go and no planes go, because planes and boats don't go in the South Pacific. No, ever. There's no, the Navy might go there, or somebody, but they don't fly over the South Pacific. They dart around through the land masses and things. So and boats don't go there. Why would a boat go there? You'd run out of oil or gas or whatever fuel you had and be stuck in the middle of the ocean. How would you get out? Right? There's nothing to deliver because there's nothing there. So I think that that's a high possibility that but I think is that they knew that the catastrophe of the Younger Dryas was coming. No matter what, we can argue about what caused the 1,200 years of freezing cold that happened in 12,000 years ago, but it did happen. There's no doubt about it. And most of the mammals on Earth died, and a lot of them went extinct because of the freezing cold. But there would be one place that would not be cold, and that would be around the equator. And so if you had a landmass that was, say, 15 degrees south of the equator, somewhere in the Pacific, it doesn't even have to be a big landmass, right? It can just be a fairly an island. You'd probably be all right. So I think that they had all of their high technology from the previous civilization was on this land, and that's where they all went to survive the Younger Dryas. And then when the cold snap ended, they came out, and they're the people that are in Graham Hancock's book, Fingerprints of the Gods. They say white people in boats came all over the world. There's myths from all over the world. They came in boats and they taught the survivors how to grow food, how to how to build houses, how to make return back to civilization. And Graham Hancock really brilliantly evokes these myths from everywhere, from Washington State, the Salish, to Central America. Viracocha was one of them. He had white skin too, and so did Quetzalcoatl, by the way. So you can just see that they have a reason for doing this. They're not doing it just out of benevolence. They're doing it because they're trying to restart civilization so that we can grow their food for them. Because I firmly believe is going on is, if you look at the Indian Vedic texts and the interactions between the people and the gods are always saying, if you want to talk to me, you got to bring me 3 or 4 cows, or you got to bring me a bushel of wheat or something, right? And they're always asking for food, right? Constantly. And you look at Cain and Abel. What do they do? He gives him wheat and he gives him meat, and Yahweh says, no, I'd rather meat than the wheat. So, get the hell out of here. Also, Morrow points out that they are prodigious drinkers. And I mean, he points it out over and over that Yahweh consumes like quarts and quarts of wine every day. And so he not only has
so the gods are alcoholics, huh, Jay?
Yep. The gods are sex maniacs and alcoholics.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it does. And it also points to how human they really are, right? I mean, they're just, they have all the foibles of us, all of them, and but the thing is that we're probably still their slaves. I hate to say it, but I think even Morrow would agree with that. We're probably still their slaves. And there's a really good interview on YouTube between Graham Hancock and Morrow, and really good, where he really sets it up and kind of shows Graham where his shortcomings are in his understanding of what's going on in the Bible. And in the Exodus, when the Jews are so supposedly slaves in in Egypt, and then they cross the Sinai and they get to Canaan, where they conquer the Canaanites and take over. None of that's in there. I mean, they don't cross the Red Sea. They cross a marsh that has reddish water in it. It's a marsh. The Red Sea didn't part. There's no mention of the Red Sea, just like there's no mention of God in the Old Testament. None. No mention. There's no. It's not even a spiritual text. There's not really anything spiritual going on at all. Saint Jerome, when he translated into Latin, he put all these flowery spiritual things in there. And if it's a good thing to forgive, and it's a good thing to not be a nasty person. And so, I understand that part of the New Testament, which I think probably does make people better by following those precepts. But telling someone that when you're attacked to turn the other cheek, I don't know. I don't know. Isn't that kind of telling you to be a wimp when they come at you and not defend yourself? And wouldn't that be exactly what they would want? Is a nice, quiet slave that doesn't rebel and doesn't say anything. So I don't know. He doesn't really go into Jesus all that much. He does show us that Jesus was probably a zealot, that is, an anti-Roman guerrilla. He's actually described, the two guys that he's crucified with are actually described in the Hebrew as guerrillas. That's the word that if you transcribe it, they weren't thieves or bandits. They were rebelling against Rome. And that's what I think Jesus was probably doing too, was rebelling against Rome. And that was what they did to you. If you rebelled against them, they crucified you. That was considered the most egregious way of dying. And what he says is that when they put the sponge of vinegar into Jesus's face, that had a drug that would make him pass out. And so Jesus passed out on the cross, and then they took him down and put him in the tomb, where he recovered from his wounds and then walked out. That's what he says. So I'm not telling you what I'm saying. I'm telling you this is what he's reading in what he's reading in the Bible and what he's seeing. And he's a scholar and he can read the language. I can't. So again, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings and make them angry at me or come after me because you think I'm, preaching non-beliefs. I'm not. I have. Everybody has their beliefs, and but those beliefs need to be considered carefully, because you don't want to fall into a false belief, and I don't either. And so, again, he's just using the Bible as his evidence. He's not bringing in any other books. He mentions the Dead Sea Scrolls, but only because they have parts of the Torah in them, and so he can compare, them back and forth and see what each is saying. And that's what good scholarship is all about, and that's what I appreciate about the book. Again, read it for yourself and make up your own mind. Don't attack me. I'm just telling you what it says.
Yeah, and then when you think of the name Elohim, it kind of breaks down and turns into 11 him, and then that kind of refers to a group. So maybe there's 11 Elohim, and maybe God is the 12th, and then you have the 12 signs of the zodiac. It gets really deep in there. But I've said several times before that there's going to be this huge push soon around USOs coming from the ocean. And there was this movie, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was about an alien invasion, and the aliens came up from underneath the ocean and attacked and took over the world and installed some form of new world government. I can't think of it. Captive state. But and what the leaders of Earth would do is they would get into these pods, and then they would go down deep into the ocean to communicate with the head of this other beings that were living on the planet. But see, people are so distracted by aliens from outer space that they can't even begin to come to the conclusion that they're from here.
And there's a lot of evidence that there's like from Google Earth. There's a lot of evidence that there's all sorts of crossing tracks on the floor of the ocean. It clearly looks like they're made by machines, and I'm talking like way down there, like a couple miles, where the pressures were just immense. And I mean, how much of the ocean we haven't even really looked at, and we don't know what is really out there. And they could be living on the bottom of the ocean. I know Ivan Sanderson thought that there were humans that lived on the bottom of the ocean, that the UFOs were them coming out of the ocean. I don't know. It makes if there's a highly advanced society survived the cataclysm of the Younger Dryas, anything is possible, right? I mean, it's not just Christianity either. It's or Judaism. It's on the it's in the temple. It's in Egypt. It's I'll come up with it in a second. It's the temple where all the apocalyptic hieroglyphs are. And I'll come up with the name of that temple in a second. But in that temple, it says that Akhenaten was the pharaoh, and he's taking a stroll down the Nile one day, and he sees a round silver disc in the sky. It lands. Beings get out and tell him to start a new religion that worships the sun, and that you have to destroy the previous big religion, which is the Setian religion. And with all the relish that he can muster, Akhenaten goes and kills like thousands and thousands of people who worship the previous religion so that he can install the religion that they just told him to install. Now, this is a famous, story out of Egypt, and how the sun worship religion got started. It got started by intervention. And over we see that in these religions, that there's this weird intervention of the gods and humans, right? Whether it be in India with Krishna, or the Greek gods and their interactions with people and humans, and then there's the demigods like Hercules, right, who are half god and half human, and they're not gods. They're just flawed. They die. They admit in the book that they die. They live a long time, but they admit in the Bible that they die. So they don't even have anything godlike about them.
You have that understanding with the cargo cults. as well during the Vietnam War. The
Yep.
cult of John Frum, the American soldiers going out into the jungle and stumbling upon this civilization that has no idea. You could just be just a little bit more slightly advanced than the average people, and they will look at you like gods. I mean, that's what the John Frum cult did. They looked at these American soldiers as gods that would bring them goods and bring them food, and they would go out and copy their airplanes, and they would try and make their helicopters out of straw and like hay bales and all this stuff. So it's like that's literally all that you have to be. You just have to be a tiny bit more advanced than some other people, and then you will be looked at like you're an all-powerful, almighty sort of god. And there's still people in the Congo today that are waiting for John Frum to return, not knowing that he was an American soldier from the United States.
Yeah, that's what happened when Captain Cook landed in Hawaii. The Hawaiians, they told Brian Forrester told me that when the first missionaries, Christian missionaries, went to Hawaii, the Hawaiians told them that they were from Asia, and they had gotten lost at sea, the original Hawaiians, and they landed in, I believe it was the Big Island, and it was all populated by these tall white people. And the tall white people, they let them live there, and they didn't really care about him. And then eventually, he told me that this group of people ended up on the island of Kauai, and they left the rest of the islands to the new Polynesian people that arrived, right? And then eventually the Polynesians killed them. They killed all the white people that were originally on Hawaii. And so when Cook landed, and everything went into disarray. I got to add that when they did that. So when Cook landed and he sailed his boat in, they thought that it was Return of the Gods. That's what they said. It's the Return of the Gods. Oh my God, it's Return of the Gods. And so all the women were having sex with Cook's sailors, and they were giving Cook all their food and everything. So they thought that it was Return of the Gods. And again, you go back to Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods, right? Who are these people that are coming in on boats, 10,000 years ago?
They're the gods from the sea. Right? They're coming in on boats. They don't know what boats are. They don't know what anything is going on outside of their little island. And then these people roll up on boats. They'll be like, "Oh, this is the gods of the sea. It's the fish gods." Right? Because they know what fish are.
Oannes is the fish god. And
boats look like fish.
Sea. Yeah, he has a fish bottom, and he comes out of the sea, and he tells everybody philosophy, right? He preaches philosophy to everybody about how you're supposed to live your life and all of this. And it's like, clearly these are, and I want to address one other thing. The fallen angels, everybody's going to say, oh, you're talking about the fallen angels, not all angels. No, the fallen angels were a mutiny within the ranks. It was a mutiny against Michael, who was the general. And so they had to be kicked out, is basically what they were. They were kicked out, but they're still angels, and angels are not beings with wings that float around. The reason that they have wings is because they can fly, but they can't fly. They're in flying machines, right? So, and that's what cherubim and seraphim are. They're flying, right? And so that's how they got around. And it's nothing very mysterious about it at all. We know from the Vedic text that there had Vimyanas in ancient India, which were flying machines. If you read,
which would just be like airplanes and helicopters today, or airships. From the mid 1800s.
So they describe the glory, which is not really glory, it's flying machine. But they say, oh, when the glory comes, the winds blow and there's a loud sound, right? And over and over, that's how they describe the flying machines, right?
And what's a jet airplane sound like?
Yeah, it was like a jet airplane. Yeah, making a huge amount of noise. And at one point, Moses says to Yahweh, he's up on the mountain, and he says to Yahweh, I want to see the Roush, Rauch. And he says, okay, I'm going to show you, but you better get behind those rocks over there because it's going to be loud, right? And so he hides behind the rocks, and the rocks is some kind of weapon. But of course, if you don't know what he's talking about, and then it must be the Holy Spirit was so powerful, that he had to hide behind rocks. Well, no, that's not at all what's going on here. The same thing with the Ark of the Covenant. Now, he doesn't go talk about the Ark of the Covenant that much, but clearly, if you read the biblical description of the Ark of the Covenant, it has two things. One, you don't want to get near it. If you touch it, you will die. So it's highly radioactive. I believe it's highly electromagnetically plasma active. And then it has two angels supposedly on the top. And those angels will help you communicate with Yahweh. So if you want to talk to Yahweh, you talk to these two angels. They're clearly like some kind of antenna, and it's, some kind of radio, and it serves dual purpose. You can get your orders from Yahweh, who you're going to kill today, and you can use this thing to blast your enemies with the plasma ray that it has.
Well, and when you think about it too, Jay, you think, well, what was the problems with some of the first craft that we were supposedly making? It was problems with radiation and people, dying being around some of the craft,
Yep.
especially in Germany, supposedly. So it seems like that the same things that we are now creating today on our own, they already had way back thousands of years ago, this other advanced race. And now that we're catching up with them where they were thousands of years ago, imagine where they are now.
Yeah. And I believe that, they are using, certain major corporations to let out technology that they deem we can now have. So like the iPad, right, or whatever, right? They had it for, who knows, maybe 1,000 years, who knows? Then finally they say, okay, well, let's get this guy Steve Jobs here, and we'll give it to him, and then he can claim he invented it and all that. I knew this guy. I didn't know him personally. I knew his daughter. They were very wealthy, and he had made all the money. And I said to her, how'd your dad make his money? He says, well, he was a high guy in the Navy, an admiral, and then he retired, and he started inventing navigation devices and things for big ships, like aircraft carriers. And he made millions and millions and millions. And I said, well, you must be, when he dies, you're going to inherit a lot of money, aren't you? And she goes, oh, yeah, probably got about 35 million coming to me. And each of my sisters and brothers each have about 35 million coming to us. And I said, wow, that's great. So anyway, the guy dies. He was, my parents' generation. And he dies. And so I see her about a year later. I said, so did you get your 35 million? And she, real sour look on her face. And I said, what's going on? And she says, no, I didn't get it. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she says, I ended up getting about 1.2 million. I said, well, that's a far cry from 35 million. And she goes, I don't want to talk about it. And I started thinking about it. And I realized that he probably didn't invent enough. It was probably given to him by them, right, to make the ships more navigable, right? So he really wasn't taking the money. I mean, he wasn't really making that money. They were. And when he died, they took it back. It was their money. And I believe that this is not the first time I've heard these stories, by the way, of somebody who's invented something and then they make millions and millions of dollars and they die and there's no money there. And you're like, what's going on? And, and I'm going to say, I don't know how much money Steve Jobs left behind, but I feel like a lot of Steve Jobs's inventions were handed down to him. That's all I feel.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, how could you not get the money if, the only way you wouldn't get the money is if you really didn't invent it and you were just the face of what they were trying to put out there.
Yep.
Now,
exactly right.
What's the chances, Jay, we're going to get kind of deep into the woods here. What's the chances that these Elohim were woken up around World War II? Now we have to be careful. here,
Yeah.
because there's this age-old tale from way back that the Germans were looking for an ancient race of beings, right? And maybe they found them, but you don't really hear people talk about that anymore. It's kind of shifted to technology that the Germans were working on, which they probably were. There is evidence for that. But what's fascinating is the thought and the idea that they were looking for possibly more land and this ancient race of beings that have been here for a really long time.
Well, we uh, we know that they were looking for Shambhala. We know that for sure, and we know that they were in the cave system in the Andes in World War II because the natives down there saw them. They saw them landing in their jets, not jets, their airplanes, and they had machines running around the mountains, and they were looking for something big. And interestingly enough, the the Indians, the tribe of Indians down there in the Amazon who reported all this activity have white skin. It's the strangest of the only white skinned native groups down there. So you don't know. And they said they lived in the caves in the Andes Mountains, and that's where they met the Germans who fleshed them out and took it over. So over and over, we see that they're looking for, hey, let's just not beat around the bush because we know that the Germans of the 1930s were they were experts in Hebrew. A lot of the people that were in the party there in Germany were Jewish. Rosenberg was Jewish, and you know that that they had scholars before that time who could tell them exactly what was going on in the Bible, right? So then they knew, they had to have known. It was just, we just didn't discover it like 3 years ago with Morrow here. I mean, this, the rabbis admit that they've known this all along, right? Yeah, this is what it's saying. Yeah, same flying machine. Yes, Yahweh, you got a flying machine. Yes, and so they had to have known. And then that had to get their curiosity going for sure. And then they had to find out, cut a deal with these people or something, right? I mean, I don't know what their intentions were, but what if they did stumble upon them? What would their reaction be? Well, maybe the reaction would be World War II and the national security state that came after it, where everything went into a clampdown and you wouldn't be allowed to go fishing around anymore. And the clampdown continues. It has really gotten bad in the last 4 years. So,
and maybe you need one of these flying machines to get to this other land, and that might be why they're suppressing the technology as well. They don't want everyday people to be able to just go and find these other beings, these ancient beings that have been living on the planet. I mean, this is all speculation, of course, on my end, but I just think that it's really interesting, and that's what you would really want to cover up, right? That's why you would put out myths and disinformation surrounding extraterrestrials in order to cover up the fact that they live here and that they've been here way longer than us, to keep people from finding them. I mean, think about that, right? If they have your attention on the sky and beings coming from the stars, you would never think about searching the planet for them because you believe they're coming from outer space. And the average person can't get to outer space, right? I'm not so sure NASA can even really get to outer space, but that's a whole other different story. So they've made it to where they're completely unachievable, out of sight, when they've been under our noses the entire time.
Yeah, pretty much right. They have been, and I saw a UFO once. I was over right near Vandenberg Air Force Base about 2 in the morning, and I was looking up and I saw the stars disappearing and then coming back on. Right, and I thought, what the heck? And I look and I saw a round disc that was perfectly black right, and covering up the stars, and it had like heat waves coming off of it, right? So you see the stars around it would like ripple a little bit in the light, and it was right over Vandenberg Air Force Base, the second most secret Air Force Base in the United States. I don't think so. You know that it showed up on their radar. They would have been scrambling if it was not theirs, right? So
Well, that's where all of the mis and disinformation really came from the government directly, was to cover up what they were working on and what they were doing on their military bases. I mean, they broke into Paul Benowitz's house and replaced his computer with a different computer to make him believe that he was communicating with extraterrestrials. Right? That's
they
how
did.
far they've
They did.
gone
Yep.
to put out mis and disinformation surrounding extraterrestrials, and a lot of that um, Paul Benowitz was getting has been echoed throughout the community as being real. That there's extraterrestrials coming to our planet that want to harvest our water, that want to take over the planet, mess with our genetics, mess with our DNA, create hybrid ETs, and it's all made up. And it was all made up by the NSA.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. And they want it to be that way. And they're under orders, man. They're under orders from higher ups, and they can't break those orders. And we don't know what the ultimate purpose of all of this is. I'm thinking that I'm pretty dang sure that we're growing their food. Okay, and I'm pretty sure all the UFO sightings of them drawing water out of lakes and stuff, and there's a lot of those, are them getting water, fresh water, and so uh, and there's if you read the Bud Hopkins abduction books, apparently they're still coming in and having sex with women and and taking their babies and all that. I mean, it all starts to make a lot of sense. Um, and once we understand that they're master manipulators, and that they want us to believe that they are God, and that's the whole point, and that's what they're doing.
And a lot of people would consider them to be God, though, because if they say that they are the ones that created us, then they would technically be God, right? Because that's what Christians and religious people believe, is that God created us, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's in a manifesto somewhere of because I don't know if it was a church committee. It was one of the some organization made a list of all the reasons why disclosure would never happen, and I think it's a fake document, but and that's one of the reasons on there, is because people would freak out that it was realizing that these extraterrestrial beings created us, and it would destroy religion. So that's I think
Oh,
it's a
it's
fake
the
document.
no, it's the it's a think tank out of Washington D.C. Oh, come on, Jay. Yeah, I know that document. I've read it many
Yeah.
times. They instructed NASA to not, if they find any extraterrestrial materials or anything, to keep it quiet, because any idea that there's an outside group running things would destroy the entire human race. And the Brookings report, and
Brookings Institute, yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's got a fairly compelling group of reasons why that would be so, and I think it probably could be so. But what I think is that they gave us the real reason that they gave us some of this advanced technology in the recent years is so that we would invent robots. It used to take, like 100 years ago, when my grandfather was a farmer, it would take probably about 30 guys to run a farm, to do all the work and everything. And that would be a big farm, a couple thousand acres. Now 2 guys can farm a couple thousand acres. That's it, because it's all automated. And I really keep going back to this in every one of the mythologies that I've studied. They were really into us giving them food and giving them booze. And over and over, we got to give them wine, we got to give them barley, we got to give them meat and fish. And I really think that that's what we're for. We're here. And so now that we've got automation, they don't need us anymore. It's like, well, I don't need all these people to be working the farms. We gave them just enough technology that now they can do everything with robotics. We can cut back on the humans. And if they do live here, they can't be very happy about things like Fukushima, right? If they're humans and they live here and we're letting out all this radiation, doing stupid stuff like they did at Fukushima, right? Putting it right on the ocean and, oh man, and in an earthquake zone and in a tidal wave zone, then they may have lost faith in us. I really think that may be what happened. I think I believe that Fukushima contaminated the water so bad that in 2012, the masters decided to change managers. And they started changing managers and looking for new people to manage and to start getting reduction in the population. And that's what's really going on. I think that's why they're causing all the chaos right now, and all the fentanyl's coming in. And I mean, just here in my little small town, there's people die every week. There's another poster up of somebody else who just died, right? And you're like, wow. And that never was going on before. I mean, maybe once every 3 months you would see something, but now I'm seeing it once a week, and not just older people. Some are not old, so I don't know. It just feels like that may be what's going on. Kind of a trimming of the herd, you might say.
David has a good question in the chat here. He says they can engineer us, but not robots. I don't know. Maybe it's something like they just want to sit back and kind of see what happens, right? I don't know.
Well, I mean, they gave, certain groups of people have certain qualities, right? The Japanese and the Germans are both really good engineers, right? And why is that? I don't know why that is. But if there is this ultra group up here, perhaps they're endowing certain people with certain things that they want them to have so they can make the machines that they want, right? They don't want to do the work. You got to understand, they don't want to work. They don't want to make robots. They don't even want to make humans anymore. They just want to control everything. And the Garden of Eden, by the way, was an enclosed garden. It says clearly in the Bible that it's enclosed. So it's a fenced-in area, and it's clearly the place where they're doing all their genetic experiments. They said all the fruits that are growing in the garden, right? They listed all and it's clearly it's an experimental garden. Clearly, they're doing genetic experiments in there, and they're doing all sorts of stuff. And that's all that really is. It's just a place where they do their genetic research. And all primates have 48 chromosomes, all right, except for one primate, and that would be us. We only have 46. Now you cannot add chromosomes, but in genetic research, but you can take them away. All right. So we had 2 chromosomes taken away from us, and we don't know what that means, but that's the difference between us and all other primates, is those 2 chromosomes. All right. And we're vastly different from all the other primates. We're hairless. Our women have protrusion, or their breasts protrude, where no other primates have that, except maybe Bigfoot. Bigfoot is probably
Bigfoot got some honkers.
He does. They would have. So in the Old Testament, they said that they created abominations, right? Well, these are probably experiments that went wrong, right? Bigfoot could very well be an abomination, an experiment that went wrong. It was trying to make a human, and it went wrong. And a lot of the mythological creatures out there could just have been experiments that went wrong. and then they go
What
back
if
to the
we're
word.
the experiment that went wrong? I mean,
Well,
why, I don't understand why
maybe
people think that Adam and Eve were the only Adam and Eve. And if this Garden of Eden is like a genetic engineering place, then they would create an Adam and an Eve. They screw up, they kick them out into the world from, because that almost sounds like a underground type of facility, almost
could
an
be.
enclosed garden, right? So they make a few Adam and Eves, they screw up, they kick them out into the world, they
Well,
make a
they
few more Adam and
made at
Eves,
least
kick 'em
16
out into the
Eves.
world.
Adam was presented with 16 Eves in a row, and he rejected 15 of them until he got to the last one, right? So they were clearly trying to figure out what he was attracted to, and they kept offering, Lilith, and there was a whole litany of names in the Bible who he was offered, and he finally chose Eve. This is the Bible. I don't know what really happened. And yeah, you're right. There could be Adam and Eves in every continent, every place on earth. Why would they just limit themselves to this one place, right? And they wouldn't. And or just one set of experiments. There would be other experiments. I mean, this is an operation they're doing, right? I mean, so they're not going. They obviously have endless funding, and so why not? And so what are they doing? Well, I mean, they're mining gold. They like gold, and they want us to be their farmers, and maybe sometimes they're warriors even too, and maybe a lot of the wars are actually of their making, and like maybe even the events that are going on right now over in Europe and in the Middle East. It feels a little bit like it could be their doing, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah, it sounds similar to the Anunnaki story
the
as
same thing.
well. Yeah.
Anunnaki are just the cousins in Samaria of of these guys. So yeah, the Anunnaki are the same thing. They're described exactly the same way in the Sumerian text. They're tall. They have red and blonde hair. They have white skin and usually blue eyes. And it should be noted, by the way, that they've done a mitochondria uh, study, and they found that the first white person appeared 8,000 years ago. There were no white people until 8,000 years ago. So I think that kind of pinpoints exactly the time of the experiment, right? When they started experimenting is and taking primates, I don't know, some kind of primate, and injecting it in with their own DNA, or I don't know what they were doing. I don't know exactly what the genetic experiment really was, but they created us. They say clearly in the book, we created you and in our image. And by the way, in the beginning of the Bible, it says, "Oh, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." And that's not. It doesn't say that. It just says this is the beginning of the story. That's all it says. This is the beginning of the story. That was all added in by Saint Jerome to really make it flowery and spiritual. He was trying to take a war text and make it spiritual, right? You're like, oh, how am I going to do this, right? And you went and did a lot of liberalization with the text. And again, I don't know if he was ordered by the Vatican to do that or what, But
Well, then you also have the speculation of what giants were. People said that, have stated that giants were redheaded
yeah.
as well, in connection with the Nephilim too. So
Yeah, and we know that that's the Paiute Indians tell that when they arrived here from Asia that this place, the West, that is, was populated by very, very tall redheaded giants who were quite fierce, and the only way that they could kill them was they would throw hundreds of the Indians would throw stones at them until they killed them. And so that was the only way that they could kill the giants. Very similar to how David killed Goliath, and who was a giant. And so over and over, we see the same kind of pattern emerging of a place of a very tall people who had red hair, and uh, they appear to be um, very technologically savvy, no matter what you think about them, but they always appear to be very savvy when it comes to machines and things. So
Now, do we think that the Elohim was operating out in the open in front of everyone way back in the day, or was it sort of like it is now, where they could possibly be manipulating humanity from the shadows? Were they just
your
out in
question.
the open?
Clearly, Yahweh was out in the open to the Israelites, right? He would be out in the open with them, but it looks like it was more like he would, don't tell anybody about me, don't tell anybody you got the orders from me, all right? So go over and knock all those people out and take what they got, but don't really mention me. Right. So they would go there as surrogates, because that's the whole point of it, right? Chosen people would be the people that you choose to do your work for you. Right. And so you would want to remain behind the scenes, because you don't want to rustle any enemies, right? You want the chosen people to have all the enemies, because that's what happened. Is they just angered everybody and pissed them off, and eventually they were destroyed too. So um, and it's very likely that one of the groups that got rejected decided that they were jealous of the Israelites, and so they created a counterfeit Israelite religion. I'm not going to go any further than that.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that maybe they operated out in the open for a little while. Things got a little weird, and they decided to kind of go underground. Not, well, maybe literally underground, who knows, but
Yeah,
they
could be.
started operating from the shadows, and then something happened in World
Yeah.
War II that woke them back up, and then they started meddling in everyone's business again.
It
Kind of.
does seem like there was about 2,000 years where they went away, or they went underground or something, and now they're back, and they're in command, and they took firm control of us at the end of World War II. There's no doubt about it. National security state, creation of CIA, creation of the NSA, the United Nations, all created in 1947. Within 2 years of the end of the war, all these things are created. The also the International Physical Year, where they measured the whole Earth. They sent boats and planes all over the Earth. What were they really doing in that there? What was really going on there? And the same thing with NASA. Why did they create NASA? What's the point of NASA? Has NASA returned anything that is of any value to us? And outside of some photographs, not really. And so I don't know. I think there's a lot more going on than we think.
Yeah, and then it also seems like that if these beings are in control of everything, like of course, it's just speculation here. If they are in control, then what does that? Could we go to war with them? Right? Because there's that age-old mythology tale that the technology was given to us, and then there was like this secret backdoor type of thing that we were going to take their technology, and then at some point in the future use their technology against them to defeat them. Straight up mythology, straight up from the community, but it's still pretty interesting.
I don't know, the way that they're described in the Bible, they're kind of degenerate, so it might be kind of easy. You never know. I mean, I'm sure they have security systems and everything to stop any of that from happening, and they may even be telepathic or something. And when they created us, they put governors on us to limit our age to 72 years, and you know what I mean? So we don't live long enough to really think this out and work it out, right? So you don't have enough time in the short life to actually figure out what's actually going on. And also on our brain, I think they put a governor on our brain so that we can't, a lot of us, a lot of humans can't think in high concepts like in physics and things, and so that holds us back, and um, and I think actually, honestly, in some ways, they find us fascinating, especially our art and music. I think they actually do find that fascinating. I think they find, they probably find Bach is incredibly fascinating, and they probably like our movies and things like that. But they may also be financing all of that too. So we don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Rex Bear in the chat. What's going on, Rex? How's it happening?
Hey, Rex.
It's happening over that way, my friend. Yeah, it seems like that's what's happening. It seems like that there was a period of time where they kind of just left us alone to our own devices. We kind of struggled because it took a really long time. We were doing the same things for a long time without their manipulation, without them hurting us or pushing us in a certain direction. We were just kind of all scattered around, and then something happened, and then they got back involved again.
Something
That's what
happened.
it
There's no
seems like.
doubt about it. Yeah, something occurred in, I'm going to say, in the 1930s. Something occurred in the 1930s that woke them back up, and they realized that things had gotten out of control and that they needed to wrest control back. Yep.
And then the cover up for that, that they've been here and that they are here, and there's extra land, and for people not to look for it, people not to search for it, they make it about outer space. They make it about extraterrestrials, people coming here from other planets, other solar systems, outside of the Earth, and make it about that, so that people will never realize that, and they wouldn't look for them here. I mean, I think that would be the way that you would do it, right? You would put a little bit of truth in there, just like the government does sometimes. They sprinkle a little truth in there, mixed with a bunch of lies and a bunch of myths and disinformation, and to kind of get you off the scent and off the trail of really what's actually happening.
There's a really odd book called The Smoky God, and it's a book where this Norwegian fisherman and his son are going way north to go fishing, and they literally go in through an opening in the top of the earth, right? And they go into a hollow earth, and the hollow earth has this orange, smoky sun in the middle of it, right? And they meet people living there, and guess what? They're tall, redheaded, white-skinned people, right? And eventually, I think the dad dies, and eventually he finds his way out. And I'm not saying I believe in the hollow earth, but a part of me thinks that because the entire world is really a hyper torus, maybe planets would be that same way too. And so there could be something to the hollow earth. In other words, we know that the earth was once about 1/3 the size of it is now, and it was all covered in water. And then it expanded, and the water falls down into the crevices where the expansion rate happens. And the earth is now where it's at, and all the water, and we know the oceans are about 200 million years old, where like Colorado is 4 billion years old. So the oceans are far younger than the land. We know that. So it could be that as the earth expands, just the core stays in the center where the gravity is zero, and you create a cavity, and maybe you can't get in there. I don't know. The thing is that you would never be able to tell, because the warm air from the inner earth hitting the cold air of the poles would just be cause perpetual fog all the time, so you'd never be able to see the hole. So I don't know. There are myths, though, of going back in every culture of people who live underground who are tall with red hair and white skin.
Yeah, then you have the Admiral Byrd story, which I think is a completely fake and made up story. And those diaries were completely fake and made up, but it's still really interesting, him going to inner earth, communicating with the beings. And I think that, didn't the beings tell him that to never come back or something? Didn't they give him some kind of warning of war or annihilation or something?
They don't want you down there, that's for sure. But there's lots of stories about that. I mean, there's the green children in England who came out of the mine in the 1600s, and they had green skin, and they said they lived in the underground, and And, there's myths that go all over the world about this, especially in places like the Himalayas and the Andes, where these stories are just everywhere.
And then the giant, I think, what was it, that one book about the Romanian Sphinx that was,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Peter Moon wrote him. Peter Moon's
yeah.
books about the in the mountains. There's a sphinx in the mountains of Romania, and there's a big, huge underground thing, and they've been down in there, and there's like all these ancient artifacts, and then they were. You remember in 2015, I think it was. The rumor was running around that they were rebuilding a mosque in Saudi Arabia, and they found this really strange thing. They didn't know what to make of it, and it went off and killed like 100 people. And they called up Putin, and Putin sent down some Orthodox priest down there, and they said it was the sword. No, the canon of Gabriel, I think it was. And then it was like super radioactive, and they put it into a container and they took it to Antarctica. And then all these people started going down to Antarctica for inexplicable reasons, like Buzz Aldrin, and right. And you're like, what's going on here, right? Well, I mean, if maybe those rumors aren't rumors, if you know what I mean. Maybe they found an old weapon.
Yeah, I think that it's a high possibility that's what the whole war in Iraq was over, was some sort of ancient artifacts, some sort of ancient weapon, like
That's where they lived.
ancient weapon of mass destruction, not a modern nuclear weapon of mass destruction.
No, it'd be more plasma, be a plasma weapon of some kind. That way, there wouldn't be any radiation left behind, but they're still radioactive. I mean, they're really dangerous as hell. So,
well, Jay, thanks so much for coming on, brother. I really appreciate the conversation. Very enlightening. I hope people really enjoyed it. Where can people find you on the internet, Jay?
Well, my show is Reality Check on YouTube, and jweidner.com is where you can see my free stuff. And my movies are up on Gaia.com and Amazon.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jay. Really appreciate your time this evening. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button, help the channel in the algorithms, and check out JFKX, Solving the Crime of the Century, out now on Amazon Prime. I will see you guys on Thursday with UFO Doomsday Cults Part 12. See you guys soon.
Believe they may be involved.